Hello everyone, welcome to Lodestar's training video on data. My name is Patrick and with me is Colin.
Hello.
We're going to talk to you about one of the most important aspects of the data warehouse and business intelligence, which is the data. On the screen in front of you we have a good overview of how data flows from the source systems over to the data warehouse and eventually onto all the different devices and outputs that you expect on a day-to-day basis. I think it's important to take you through this so you understand that the data warehouse is made up not only of banking system sources, but of other third-party sources to give you that clear picture and the one repository that you can use to source business intelligence and reporting throughout the enterprise. So you can see on the screen we have on the left-hand side all the different typical sources that we pull into the data warehouse. This will be a little bit different for every bank and credit union using this system. But everybody, at least at a minimum, will have the banking system source pulled in. And you might also have GL, credit card, insurance, wealth management, all types of other third parties pulled in. Now what we do on a nightly basis is that we transform that data after we pull it from those source systems and we load it into our data warehouse and we go through a process of simplifying the data model. Once the data model has been simplified, then the different devices and reports and dashboards that use that data as a source now can push that simplified data structure out through the different channels available. Here's a more simplified version of what's happening. So if we just take the banking system for a second, on the left side we have the production banking system that resides either on your site or in the data center. On a nightly basis we pull that data over. Now in the data warehouse itself you'll see that we have two different locations. One is called DW Stage and the other is called DW Prod. Now the difference between the two is when we pull data from banking production or any of those other third-party systems, we drop it into the DW Stage area. Now in that area it looks just like it looks in production, so it's a mirrored copy. From there we run our overnight process against it that moves the data over into the DW Prod schema and simplifies the data structure so that it's easy to report on. And that's the end goal that we're trying to get to. In the DW Prod schema is really what those destination tables are on the right. It's a simplified account table, a customer or a member table, a transaction table, etc. On the left-hand side, you can see all the different complex tables from your transactional systems that have come in. So, with this in mind, we're going to now jump to a little bit more detail about the DW Prod schema, which is the one that's most important to everybody. What we see on the screen right now is the Lodestar Data Dictionary. This will be accessible to everybody. We will show you when we're in the tool the easiest way to get to the data dictionary. What the data dictionary really gives you is an insight into the DW Prod schema and how it's set up. So Colin, if you could take us here to the table of contents, and we can see all the different tables that exist in the DW Prod schema. Account, account fees, account hist, and so on. Now the data dictionary is interactive, so if you click on the account, it will take you right to the account table. The interesting part about the data dictionary is not only do you find out what the name of the column is and what data is in it, but in the description we can see a more verbose description of what this column is in plain English. Account close date. You can see if we look at the third one. We can see the source where it came from in production, and you can see if we've done any filtering or summation on that column. So you know exactly how to source it all the way back to the production database. Okay, now Colin, if you could take us back up to the table of contents and maybe give a quick overview of where your typical data elements are located. So Colin, we're back up at the table of contents, and we know that probably 80% of what people are looking for are contained in 20% of the table. So maybe you could talk us through that.
Sounds good. Some of the key tables that we use more often than not would be the account table, the account BAL table, and then member and customer table. And that really holds a lot of the information that you would use with most reports when you're building them, either in Publisher or in BI. The account table holds a lot of information about the account, a lot of attributes that relate to that account, and has almost over about 150 columns. When we look at the account balance table, that really holds balances for every single account in the system on every single night. So you can do a lot of trending off of account balances, looking at positive balances, negative balances, charge-off balances. So it has a lot of the different balance types, and as I said, it's tracked every single night so you can look historically. And then we look at the customer or the member table. If I scroll down here a little bit, and that's that table right there. And really that table holds all the pertinent information about the people in the organizations within the institution. So looking at addresses, looking at relationships, anything to do with those people in the organizations that are stored in the system are tracked in that table. And then a couple other tables that I want to mention are the member HIS table or customer HIS table and the account HIS table. And really what those are monthly snapshots of the customer member table and the account table. And those ones are used, again, when we're doing trending. So instead of looking at something that is stored in the database on a daily basis, we're looking at it, tracking it month over month, looking at changes in portfolio managers or changes in balances, and some of those attribute changes over time.
Okay. Now, Colin, as I look at this structure, it looks still a little bit complex. Is it safe to say that really power users or people who like to write direct SQL against the warehouse will be down at this layer? But what are we going to do for people who are more everyday users and they want to use the graphical interface in BI? Can you walk us through how this data gets to an even more simplified format for those users?
Yeah, of course. As you said, this is a level more for the power users, people that understand how to write their own SQL and how to join tables together and get the information at the data level. But to simplify things, what we have is what you see on the screen here is it's called Oracle Business Intelligence Repository. And really what this is doing is it's providing you as a user in the front end, it's providing cubes and a simplified structure. So we've already talked about simplifying the data from production into DW stage and then into DW prod. Now this is even taking it a little bit further and changing those tables and columns into more business terminology, creating joins between those tables within a cube, so that way it simplifies it for the end user. What you'll see here on the right-hand side is what's called the physical layer. The physical layer is really pulling in all the DW prod tables. So exactly what's in the data dictionary is what you'll see in this list of tables here. So things like the account table and account val and customer and member, those tables that we just talked about. Then what we do is we pull those tables from DW prod into what's called business model and mapping. This is now where we group tables together into subject areas or cubes. So for instance, we have deposit account cube, we have loan account cube. When I click on this, you'll see that it's a grouping of tables that actually have a source from the physical layer. So when I click on the source of a table like loan account, you'll see that it came from a table called L1 loan account, which is on the right hand side under the physical layer. So it is a table that comes from the data warehouse itself. So you can see that that's coming directly from the physical layer. So what we're doing is we're bringing them from the physical layer into the business model. We're doing the joins for you. So we're joining the information into those cubes. Then what we do after that is from the business model layer is we bring that over into what's called the presentation layer. And this is what you actually see in business intelligence and in Publisher when you're writing reports. And when we look at a cube, for instance, Lodestar Development Cube, what we've done is taken it from what you saw in the data dictionary that has database terminology, and we've changed things into business terminology. So we've changed names, tables.
So Colin, for me as an end user of the system, I'll never have to go into this layer. I mean, you take care of all this complexity for me. But as an end user, now let's go take a look at the tool where I actually log into and where I would start to write my reports and see this presentation layer in action.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, this is all controlled by Lodestar, but I think it's important to talk about so you can understand the workflow. So yes, we'll jump back into business intelligence now. And okay, so when we actually are building reports in business intelligence, so when I go up to new and you click on new analysis, which is the button to create a new report, what you'll see is a list of subject areas. And these subject areas match to what we saw in the repository. So again, these are the subject areas, the groupings or the cubes, whatever you want to call them, that join like tables together. When we jump into that, let's use Lodestar Development Cube to start with. When we click on that, what you're going to see is, again, on the left-hand side, you'll see everything on the subject area, under the subject areas that we saw in that repository. So these are all the business terminology and the business, the renaming of the tables. Now, to go a little further into that, if you're in business intelligence and you want to get further information about some of the tables or columns, when I click on a specific table, what I can do is open up what's called the metadata dictionary. So this is just a different type of dictionary that presents information from the repository level or BI level. So you can see here, what it does is it shows you the subject area, and this is very interactive, just like the past data dictionary that we showed you. But if I want to get down into further detail, I can actually click on a specific presentation column, and it'll drill down the path and really show you the transparency of where that column is coming from. When I click on the logical column mapping of account close date, you'll see that it'll take you right down to the physical layer, so showing you the table source and the expression. So this is coming from the account table in the data warehouse. So this is just another way of looking at the data, but more from the business intelligence side, whereas the past dictionary.
And Colin, if I do go to the other data dictionary that we saw, the physical DW Prod data dictionary, then I can get even more detail about this if I need to.
Exactly, yeah.
Great. Now, I see this is called the Lodestar Development Cube, and I see it's quite extensive. Is this the biggest cube in the system? And is this where Lodestar writes most of their reports from, if they were going to write a report?
Yes, this is the biggest cube, and it holds all the information, not all, but 95% of the information that's in the data warehouse that you would ever need to report off of. If we look at a couple other cubes, for instance, a deposit account cube, it's a pared down version. So it's got the same type of information, but what we've also done is we've pre-filtered the data. So when you're looking at the deposit account cube, and if you were to run a report pulling in deposit account information, you're only going to get information on deposit account. So there's no need for the end user to do additional filtering on it.
Oh, so I see. So you're just getting to a more targeted data set and being able to get to a subject area quicker, whether it's the loan cube or the deposit cube or the card cube. But really, it's the same data that's in the Lodestar Development Cube, but it's just a smaller subset of it.
That's exactly correct. Okay. And then there's a couple other key things that we actually add into the repository as well. And this just makes reporting a little bit easier. So things like functions or aggregate columns. So this is an example of an aggregated column. What we've done, instead of just displaying the account number, is we've done a count on the account number. And any column that you see that has a little icon beside it that's yellow is an aggregated column. So in this instance, if I was to drag that into a report, it's going to do a count on the number of account numbers versus displaying the account numbers. Similarly, down below, this is a sum on the current balance column. So those are a couple of key pieces that we've added into the repository to help with report writing. Then I'm going to jump back into the Lodestar Development Cube, and I'm going to show you another function that we've added. It's a dimension. So this is being able to drill based on dimensions. If we look for the product summary table, this is a good example. The product summary table has a few columns in it, but what it has is a column that looks like this called dimension product summary. If I add that into the selected columns, what it has now is we've defined the dimensions for you. If I click the little plus sign here, you will see that these are the dimensions that are included. So it starts at the highest level, showing all products, and then it goes into a category, which is deposit and loan, and then to the major, and then down to the minor. So we've defined that dimension for you, but it allows you to add some complexity to your reports without having to do very advanced reporting. Now, if I add another column to that from another table, which is called the account summary table, and again, this table has some aggregated columns like account number count. If I add that column in there, what it's going to do when I look at the results tab is it's going to build a report that looks at count of number of accounts based on those dimensional models. So we select results here. See, it's generated us a report, and now it's an interactive report that's going down those dimensions. So when I click expand on the all products, you'll see that it now has our two categories. So we have deposit and loan, and then anything that falls outside of those categories. If I expand the deposit category, now you'll see checking, savings, time deposit. And if I want to keep going down the dimension, I just keep interacting with the report, and now you can see that it goes down into the minor level and it shows you the counts. So by adding those dimensional attributes into the repository, again, it allows for more advanced report writing without having to build a super advanced report.
So Colin, probably the easiest way for a user to get used to the data is really just to jump into the cubes and start dragging columns over, looking at what data is in the different subject areas, and playing with the data. You can't hurt anything by pulling it over and experimenting. And then you'll pinpoint the locations that you want to go to most often to build your ad hoc reports. And if you look at the other training video that we have around report building and dashboard creation, that'll talk you through how to actually create an interactive report and how to drop that onto a dashboard.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I think the easiest way is to really just get in. It's drag and drop. You're really just interacting with the data by just selecting those columns. And that's the easiest way to get familiar with what's there.
Okay. So Colin, I think this concludes our data training video. But before we close off, I just want to point out a few elements up at the top of the screen. You can see that there is a link to the Lodestar Data Dictionary, which we showed you earlier. And then we've got links to this video and a couple of others. There's a navigation video, the dashboard building video, and this video, which is the data overview video. So you can access this content at any time that you like. So that concludes our video. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.